Welcome. You've got 5 minutes.
Cool.
Please proceed. I'm just acting chair while Ryan's just getting the link working. Good to have you here.
Thanks. So kia ora, I'm Callum McMenamin. I work as an accessibility consultant. I help organisations make things accessible for disabled people. So I've read the Regulatory Standards Bill, and basically my main feedback on it is I believe it needs an additional principle for good lawmaking that considers compliance with relevant United Nations conventions. So for instance, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the New Zealand government has ratified this convention. However, in my experience, the government has failed to properly implement this convention in its lawmaking. One recent example is the repeal of the Plain Language Act, where this convention was not considered at all. The legislation guidelines from LDAC were not considered properly. The Cabinet Manual was not considered. So that's why I think the Regulatory Standards Bill could act as an additional measure to keep a check on lawmakers to make sure all laws pass certain levels of quality and considering certain aspects like UN conventions. There's other conventions like the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Rights of the Child, and a Convention Against Racial Discrimination. So all of those could be sort of combined into a single principle. One other thing is, I really like how the Regulatory Standards Board, you can actually complain to it if legislation doesn't meet the standards. The Ombudsman can't do that, for instance, as far as I'm aware. So I think that's a step forward. Another thing, one of the first principles says that laws should be clear and accessible. I would really like it if these terms were defined a little bit better. From my point of view, accessible means that disabled people can access it, which I think is a pretty good principle, just making it a bit more clear if that's the intent. There's also another point, another part of the principles is that it says every person is equal before the law. I have seen a lot of commentary that this might remove the potential for affirmative action. So that is taking positive steps for a particular group of people that have suffered discrimination in the past in order to gain equity. I think you could change the wording there and say all humans have equal value before the law. It's just a slight tweak to the wording where it acknowledges we value everyone equally, but we might treat people a little bit differently to correct wrongs that have occurred in the past. So I think that would be a good change to the wording. Another thing is, when I was considering how the Regulatory Standards Board operates, I think it will lack independence. Basically, the minister can hire and fire board members at will. So board members probably won't be very independent because they will want to keep their roles and the funding that they receive. I think that board members should be appointed by the Chief Executive of the Ministry for Regulation so that it is not a political entity. And finally, I have read the Waitangi Tribunal report on this. I think that the government needs to really consider that report and fix up all of the problems that have occurred, for instance, not consulting Māori. I believe that those issues can be resolved and it won't be the end of the world. I think it can all be fixed and we can actually get a good set of standards for our regulations in place. So I think it's all fixable and that's what the government should do. So kia ora, thank you for listening.
Kia ora, Callum. Thanks for your submission. I'm sorry, Mark, we're at time and no thanks to me having some technical difficulties running a little bit late. So yeah, appreciate your submission, Callum. We've got Donna next.
That sounds like a submission of, I'm not exactly for it, but here's how you can make the bill a lot better, but I doubt that they'll make the bill a lot better.
I actually really liked what he said.
Yeah, I did as well.
I wasn't sure which horse he was on.
Yeah.
but I liked his optimism. It's actually been blissful for me coming out of retirement to have the pleasure of listening to so many people doing their submissions and the ways that they have found that to try and express the basic point that he makes, which is, sorry, this is not about shutting off needs based on needs. So this is actually about understanding that people are going to have differences and they're going to want and respond better to different things. So I really like what he said, calling it affirmative action. It's 1960s American. That was like how I got into law school, you know, and my sister got into med school. So it's got appeal for me for quite a long time as a way of describing it. I think he covered points that seem to me to be about pretty similar to what we've seen in our opponents to the bill. So I know that, maybe he just thought it would appeal better if he kept it in a mid-range neutrality. And I liked his optimism that there's something we can do. But I'm less optimistic about the Regulatory Standards Bill and its purpose, because it doesn't seem to have a lot once the corrections are made. Its reason for being, will have disappeared, in my opinion. So that's a good young person and articulate and knows his stuff.
Yeah. Your 2 cents worth, Ray.
Yeah, well, well said, Hana. I liked the bill in it's something fresh, but I just could not deny when I went to investigate myself, like the amount of redacted statements for like Waitangi. I think you said it best, Hana. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, let's get on to the next.
I did want to mention one thing that he kind of skirted around, but he was looking askance at the structure of the minister and the Regulatory Standards Board. And I think that's a really fundamental problem with this bill. It's the power over things that maybe the New Zealand public might not care so much about, but it's actually the power over other ministers. And he's imposing himself and its philosophies over the whole of the parliament. I mean, it's really quite fundamental constitutional implications there, let alone what they are not doing and trying to do with respect to te tiriti.
I almost say it's obtains by deception.
Obtains the power by deception?
Yeah, especially when they say, it shouldn't bother any of you, or we want an inclusive society for all, so we don't need to include the treaty. It's offensive. Yeah,
I think the power that David Seymour tries to allocate to himself in this bill as the appointer of the Regulatory Standards Board needs some thinking. The Minister of Regulation probably shouldn't be derived from a party who only 8% of people voted for. And he's not only going to be the arbiter of who gets to decide which of our laws get overhauled the fastest.
Yeah. What do you think about what Shaz has just said there, the comment that's on the screen at the moment?
Sorry, I was reading. About
Shaz's opinions on it.
Discrimination being a continuing practice. Yeah, I really loved what Tina Ngata said. And what she did was bring forth the whakapapa of the Regulatory Standards Bill way back to the original statements that show that it was about Māori fighting for survival, or about Brown seeking to end our existence. So it's very easy to overcome things if they're not still happening.
Yeah.
Tina's comes right forward to the Regulatory Standards Bill because it is in that tradition. It's trying to extinguish, in this case, the legal relevance and identity of presence of Māori. And so it is. I agree entirely with that. And that's probably the experience of almost all Māori, that it's all very well telling us to get over something. It happened to me last week. It happens to me vicariously when bills like this are put in front of our public, and when that becomes the way that Māori are reflected by people in power. So
yeah,
I hope I got that.